All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Jack Dagnan, and a Terry College of Business Senator and Chair of the Committee on Budget and Oversight, the Student Government Association Senate. Today, I am co-hosting this town hall with Ella.
Thank you, Jack. My name is Ella Baxter, and I serve as a Senator at Large in the Student Government Association Senate. I am also the chair of the Committee on Student Experience, which focuses on issues pertaining to student affairs and the livelihood of students on campus, including, but not limited to, student initiatives, Senate initiatives, and organizational support, and support for student activities and organizations. Based on student demands, the Senate has compiled a summer town hall series where we are bringing administrators and students together to answer the questions students and parents are asking.
Today, I am so excited to have our first guest with us from Recreational Sports, Mr. Keith Wenrich. Welcome this morning. Mr. Wenrich, will you please introduce yourself as well as what Rec Sports does?
Great. Good to see everybody this morning. My name is Keith Wenrich, and I'm the Director of Recreational Sports. We are excited about our opening date, which we just announced about a week ago. We're going to open up our facility on Thursday, August the 13th. And we are excited for our students coming back on the 14th and starting school on the 20th. So what we offer at Rec Sports is we have our Ramsey facility that we have. We also have some outdoor fields at Rec Sport Complex. We have an outdoor challenge course. We have a club sport complex out on South Millage. We also have Pound Hall that we have, which is on the Health Science campus. And so the Ramsey Center, which is actually the largest, I believe it was at one time, the largest recreation facility in the nation. And it's actually the largest building, I believe, in the state of Georgia for any educational USG system. So it's 440,000 square feet, which allows us to do a whole lot here in the Ramsey Center. And during this time, we've made some changes to the Ramsey Center. We've actually moved a lot of our fitness equipment onto the basketball courts where we can social distance all of our equipment. So, and that allowed us in our strength and conditioning room for both of our rooms that we have, allowed us to spread that equipment out as well. So we're excited about that opportunity, is that students will be able to come in, get a workout in. Students can also take a group exercise class. We have fitness passes that we're having. We've been able to limit the amount of people that come into the class, but there's a lot of opportunities. We're going to have over 60 or 70 different fitness classes that people can take and pay the fitness pass for that and take that class. And with that as well, we are working on a system where if you pay for that pass, you could also take a class at home in your residence hall or your apartment, wherever you're living at the time. So those are great opportunities that we have coming up. Also personal training too. We do online personal training which are students, which is pretty cool. So students are actually training their clients online, and we've been able to do that during the shutdown time that we've had as well. We will also be offering some intramurals in club sports. Club sports will be able to do some practicing and get out there and do what they do. With our intramurals, it's going to be a limited schedule. We'll do esports, which we continue to do over the spring and over the summer. We'll also have some one-on-one competitions, whether it's pickleball or badminton. We'll also do some punt, pass, and kick competitions. So we're trying to do some various things that we may not have done in the past, but now these are single competitions that we can do and utilize in the area. And then just the facility in general, we're really encouraging people to, one, they need to wear their mask, and we're going to social distance, and we created an opportunity and an environment where that can happen within our Gym Central area and so on. So that's just a little bit of what we're offering this year in Rec Sports.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to jump into our questions that are submitted by our students and our parents. So how are the physical fitness classes going to operate this fall?
So that's a great question. That's actually run through academics. That's a great question for academics. We closely partner with academics and have been on phone calls with them on a weekly to bi-weekly basis to talk about the various social distancing practices that we have in place. So academics is coming out with their schedule real soon to get those classes out that they are offering. And I know that they're offering a lot of classes where they'll meet outside and they'll do some classes outside, do some walking classes outside. We still have our spinning classes that we're going to have, but in a reduced number. So they're working through their schedule right now. So that's probably a better question for academics, is they're still working on that calendar.
Sorry, muted. Got a little bit of a two-parter right here. First, will group fitness classes such as cycling or boxing still be offered? And additionally, you also mentioned esports. How will that work in the coming semester and beyond?
Yeah, good question. So yes, group fitness classes will still be going on. I just walked upstairs and took a look at our cycling class. We have all the cycle bikes that we have out there. We distanced them 10 feet apart. So we even went a little bit further than the 6 feet minimum. So we still will be offering those classes. And in our boxing classes, those numbers have been reduced because of the size of the room. We're only going to be having 4 or 5 participants in the room during those boxing classes. But once again, we are working on an online platform that if you do take those classes, let's just say you can't meet, you can call this class up at any time, and then you could actually take that class at home, so, or wherever you're staying and living. As far as esports, we did not run esports until March 13th of last year, or this year, March 13th of this year. So that's been going well. We've had a lot of participants on that. You sign up for an intramural play pass, which is a greatly reduced fee this year. We're still working out the numbers. It's either going to be $5 or $10 for that, and you can play others around the university. So that's been good, and we have several different esports that we've been doing. So that's been fun. We had about, I think, 250 to 300 people participate in the spring. So just a couple of little things that we have offered this year.
So what are some of the precautions being taken, and how can students follow CDC guidelines while at Ramsey?
Yeah, well, one, we need to make sure everybody's wearing a mask and washing their hands and socially distancing. So I think I've talked a lot already about our equipment being social distance. One of the concerns we have is that when students are, let's just say you're on a treadmill or you're on a bike or you're on an elliptical machine, when you are on those machines, you are allowed to take your mask off because we realize you're in a high intensity class and that or a high intensity exercise, that it may be harder to breathe with that mask on. But as soon as you get off that piece of equipment and using that equipment, you need to put your mask back on. We also have hand sanitizing stations around the facility. We've increased our cleaning and our cleaning schedule for that as well. One of the great things about the Ramsey Center is we have a lot of student workers that work for us. So we start our training, our online training with them next week. And we're just going to be continue to stress the cleaning of all the equipment. One of the things that we're asking our members to do, our students and our patrons that utilize the facility, is to wipe the equipment down before you get on the equipment and wipe it down after the equipment, or after you're done on the equipment. So again, it's 2 different types of sanitizing on that, and then just constantly washing your hands. We have limited the number of people in our strength and conditioning rooms. So as you may know, it gets pretty busy at the Ramsey Center from about 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night. So if one of our rooms, for instance, our first strength and conditioning room, if that gets more than 88 people, which is a reduced number of people in that room, we're going to do a 1 person in, 1 person out to get into that room. And we'll have stanchions put up, we'll have tape on the floor, we'll have all of that. One of the great things that we have is the iris scanners coming into the facility, so you never have to touch anything if you don't want to touch that. So that's been a good thing. We also went to a cashless area at our front desk, so we're not going to be taking any cash coming in. It's all going to be on credit card if you have to sign up for anything. We've also reduced our hours a little bit, so we can get some more cleaning done at night. So our hours during the week are going to be 6 to 9, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then on Saturdays, 12 to 6, and on Sundays, 3 to 9. So we have to increase our cleaning bit. It gives us a chance. We have those electrostatic cleaners, gives us a chance to spray down some stuff. and work through the cleaning processes. So we are all on board with professional staff and student staff to, we're all one big team here. We call ourselves the Ram Fam, which is a great thing that we have here at the Ramsey Center, and we're all pitching in to do cleaning whenever we see that. So we're working through the cleaning process and making sure we're getting that done. We also ask that, and all the students know this, and all of our patrons know that, if you're feeling sick, don't come into work, or if you're feeling sick, don't come in to work out. We just really need to try to protect everybody that's in the building at the same time.
Great. So what ways do you recommend students stay active this coming fall semester?
Well, I think, we've talked a lot about intramurals. We talked a lot about fitness and wellness. We also are going to have some outdoor clinics that you can get involved in. We also have out of our rec sports complex, you have Lake Herrick that's out there, and you got some trails that are behind there. We're going to be doing some yoga classes out on the lawn out there, so that's going to be fun. I think just getting involved, and that's what we always talk about. And I know y'all as SGA representatives are always involved, and that's the great thing, and you know that. So we want to try to get people involved as much as possible. So I think, there's just the basic stuff that we always need to do. We need to make sure we're eating well. We need to make sure we're exercising, and we need to make sure we're getting some sleep too. And then getting that social interaction when you're here at the Ramsey Center. So, I think that's probably the best thing, the advice that I can give is just to get involved, get your exercise in. If you're not taking a bus, walk to class. Don't drive to class, walk. We need to get our steps in every single day.
Thank you. What facilities on campus does Rec Sports manage and the UGA students can use?
Sure, great question. So we obviously have the Ramsey Center, so that's a big one. We also have Pound Hall, which is out on the health science campuses. Those hours out there at the Pound Hall is going to be 11 to 2, and then from 4 to 7, Monday through Friday, and it's closed on the weekends. And then we have the outdoor complex, the Rec Sports Complex, which is across the street from the health center, and we have 9 fields out there that people can utilize. When you're outdoors, it's great. We want to try to do as much as we can outdoors. We also have the Lake Herrick Pavilion, which we manage. We have a large classroom out there that we can reduce the number of people, but that's also a great place to have a retreat, a great place to have a class, great place to have a clinic. You look right out onto Lake Herrick. It's a beautiful area. We also have our challenge course out on the Oconee Forest, which is connected to the Rec Sports Complex. You can sign up as a team. We do lots of team building out there. It's just a great place to be. And then if you've ever walked the Oconee Forest, which is not managed by us, it's managed by the Warnell School of Forestry. There's just some great trails out there that you can go running on. And then lastly, we have our club sport complex, which is out on South Millage, where a lot of our clubs practice. So those are areas. It takes a little, it's about a mile off campus, but it's a great place to practice for our club sport teams.
Awesome. So I know you mentioned some clinics earlier before that Rec Sports will be administering. So how will those work in the fall semester?
So we'll have, I want to make sure everybody's going to our website to check out our website. One of the things that'll be updated that we're putting on our website, it'll be up by August 10th, is a know before you go. Before you come into the Ramsey and before you participate, that's going to have a lot of our safety rules that are going to be on there. But we'll also have some outdoor clinics that we're going to be doing. Those can range from cooking in the outdoors. Those could range from knot tying. Those could be, we also will do some virtual team building if we needed to do that. So we have a lot of things that our outdoor staff really coordinates and does an excellent job on of doing outdoor clinics. So they can teach you how to do some backpacking. They've got a lot of stuff that's involved in. And so we don't have, we're not doing any trips this fall, but we will do some clinics out on by the Lake Herrick and do some different things out there. You can learn how to maybe kayak. You can learn how to canoe. We've got those. We also have those as rentals as well. So students can rent backpacking equipment, they can rent tents, they can rent cooking supply, cooking material to go out and camp and backpack in. And that'll be a little bit different. We're going to do some curbside pickup for that. So you can rent that equipment. We'll do curbside drop off and curbside pickup. And then once that equipment comes back, we're going to sanitize that equipment, leave it in one of our racquetball courts for a 72-hour period, just to make sure that we quarantine the equipment, if you can actually do that, but we're going to do that. And then, so there's a lot of options for students to still come and participate at the Ramsey Center.
Great. It's great to hear that everything seems almost business like usual, just a little bit modified.
A little bit smaller, but we'll get there. We're going to get there.
Sounds good. So can you expand more on some of the group fitness classes that are going to be offered at Ramsey?
Yeah, it's gonna be a typical, if I can say typical schedule, it's gonna be a typical schedule, but it'll be just less amount of people coming in. So we'll still have a Zumba class, a spin class. We'll still have a quick fit class. We'll have all these different classes that we've had in the past, but it's gonna be kind of first come, first serve, getting in there. So that's gonna be a little bit busy. Especially in the first part of the year, it gets really busy that first part of the year. And then I think once the students get their first test in, then it slows down a little bit. So, but those classes will still be offered, but again, it's just less people in the class. And what we've done is we've taken a percentage that you take the square foot of the room, and we've divided that by 113 square feet, which is a percentage that we've been working with athletics on. And so we've been able to get the numbers of the people coming into that class on that. The other thing that fitness and wellness does is personal training. And that's could be huge during this time as well too, especially because we're going to offer that not only in person, but online as well. So people can sign up for personal training. It is a student usually that is our personal trainers. In fact, they're all students. So that's kind of neat to make that connection, as we're always trying to make connections for people. And that's a good connection. I know that the Dean of Students has been continually meeting with his personal trainer during this time. So those are a couple of the classes. Again, our website will be updated by August 10th with all the different classes that we have going on.
So what advice do you have for incoming students, whether they be freshmen or transfers, during this time?
Great question. As you know, just get connected. Go out and try new things. I know that not only do we have new programs here, and that we have a lot of programs here, but student organizations, there's over 700 student organizations, and just get involved and try something new. It's a great time to try something new, and if it doesn't work, try different things. So you can't go wrong with trying new things and trying new clubs and trying new organizations. And I think everybody gets that too. You may have 20 people that show up to your first meeting and then only 5 at your next, but that's okay. Those are the 5 that you want to really be hanging out with. And that's important for us to go out and try those new things. So I would say that. The other advice is I just talked a little bit about it. Make sure you're eating right. Make sure you're drinking lots of water. Make sure you're exercising. And the challenge for all first years, and I think for a lot of college students, is just getting a lot of sleep if you can. I know that's challenging. So, but especially this year, I think that's really important to do that. So just some common everyday advice that you hear within student affairs, that you hear even from home, but just getting involved is the biggest thing. One of the things that we really pride ourselves in here at the Ramsey Center is I talked a little bit about it before, we call ourselves the Ram Fam, and really we want everybody to be able to come in and utilize the Ramsey Center. We believe it's one of the best places on campus. It's a great opportunity to meet people. It's a great opportunity to get some exercise in and have some fun while you're doing it. And that's all part of well-being, and the student affairs well-being is getting people involved and doing things outside of the classroom. So I think the advice is to come down, try it out, and don't be scared. There's this, it's a great place, and it's really welcoming for everybody.
Thank you. I think that's really, really great advice. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I know we're all ready to get back to campus. We invite all parents and students to visit recsports.uga.edu to learn more about rec sports.
All right, our second guest today is from the new division within Student Affairs, Engagement, Leadership, and Service, Ms. Taylor Kane. Ms. Kane, will you please give a brief introduction of yourself, as well as what ELS is and what it oversees on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, Ella, thank y'all and SGA for including engagement, leadership, and service in this initiative of y'all's this summer. I commend y'all on your hard work and incorporating, trying to keep your peers updated as we all prepare to come back this fall. So I serve as the Director of Engagement, Leadership, and Service, a brand new department within the Division of Student Affairs. For many, it sounds brand new, like a new concept, but maybe a little similar in terms of the experiences and programs and services that we offer. We essentially are a combination of two previously separate offices, the Center for Student Activities and Involvement that I previously oversaw, and the Center for Leadership and Service, both on the first and second floor of the Tate Student Center. We've essentially combined spaces, combined a lot of the same staff, and best part about it is that all the programs and services students have come to know and love are still available and at their fingertips for participation. So some of those things include leadership and service initiatives like LeaderShape, the Leadership UGA program, the Collegiate Leadership Conference that our office has hosted every year. This will be the 25th year of that leadership conference next spring. Service initiatives include certainly the impact service breaks. Likely those will look a little different this fall, but we're still have our fingers crossed that next spring break will work out for us. The Serve UGA initiatives and Service Squad, there's programs that include days of service like Dog Day of Service and the Interfaith Day of Service. Still plenty of ways for students to engage within the Athens-Clarke County community as well as the communities across Georgia. In addition to that, a lot of students have come to love the programs and events that come out of our student activities area, like university unions programs, like the Movies in Tate, concerts, outdoor films and events, late night events like Dogs After Dark, comedians and dialogue and discussion opportunities. There's the annual homecoming that, you know, with fingers crossed, we hope is still going to be a go for the fall semester. And then there's also our student organizations area. Many students across campus are involved in one of our over 750 student organizations here on the UGA campus, and our office helps register all those groups, provides opportunities for them to network with one another, figure out how to run their organizations more effectively and efficiently. And two of my favorite areas that we also get to oversee is student media and student governance. So we also help advise the Pandora Yearbook under student media, as well as the WUOG 90.5 FM radio station, typically just called WUOG. Both of those opportunities are located on the third floor of Tate by the Starbucks. Everyone knows where Starbucks is. And then student governance, which includes y'all, Student Government Association. I get the privilege of directly advising this organization. And then we also help advise the Graduate Student Association. So similar to student government, but they advocate for the needs and the interests of graduate and professional students across campus. So that was a mouthful. There's tons of opportunities for students to get engaged in different experiences that we provide across campus. But I'm excited to introduce this new department to students and get them involved.
Thank you so much. Now we are going to jump into questions submitted by students and parents. So how has the ELS changed during this transition, and how will it look different in the fall?
Yeah, I mean, Ella, I think the best part about it is that while some of our experiences may look different in terms of not all of them are going to be able to be in person like we're all used to, our hope is that you still take away the same outcome or feeling after you get done with it. So if it's, you know, normally you're used to going to your student org meeting in person and getting ready to sit next to your best friend and catch up on what you did over the past weekend. That experience may not exist in the way that it normally has, but through technological advances that the university is providing, like Zoom, I think a lot of student organizations are still going to be able to function in a way that helps them still be efficient and effective across campus. Our student activities areas, we're getting lots of questions about what student activities going to look like this fall. Are there still going to be events? There will be, but a lot of them are going to be done through a virtual setting. Right now, our University Union Student Programming Board is busy at work creating a full calendar of events for this fall. That includes musical artists, comedians, folks on different social topics and areas of interest. So there's still going to be a lot of different ways for students to engage and find ways to make connections and meet new people. It just may require a little bit of extra effort. Our main focus and all of that we're planning for this fall is focused or keeps at the forefront the safety and well-being of students and participants. So that's always going to be the driving factor when we decide whether or not something's going to be okay or safe to do. We're going to make sure that we certainly keep in the forefront of our minds the safety of folks who are participating in them. But I'm confident that a student who is still willing to put themselves out there, kind of get out of their comfort zone, be willing to meet new people and try new things, just like we would encourage even if we were in person and COVID-19 was not a thing right now. Those are some of, I think, the best strategies for a student to kind of still meet new people and make UGA home. Is being willing to kind of lean in to trying new stuff and meeting some new people. I think you'll quickly realize that there's still plenty of opportunities to engage and be involved on campus.
Great. So to kind of expand on what you said about making UGA your own home, what would you tell a first year who is looking to get involved in campus this fall, but doesn't know where to start, who to talk to, or where to go?
Absolutely, Jack. I always say that involvement on campus is kind of a choose your own adventure in terms of strategies, because we've got multiple different ways for a student to kind of tiptoe their way into the process. For students who want to just see a cursory overview, a glance of everything that ELS has to offer, you can start on our new website, els.uga.edu, but the Involvement Network is probably the place I'd point everybody to kind of check out. The Involvement Network can be found at involve.uga.edu. A student can log in with their MyID and password. From there, if you've never been in the system before, you can create your own profile on the Involvement Network. I like to say it's kind of like a mobile app that you may use to meet new people, but in this situation, you're meeting new organizations. The Involvement Network has a full list of all registered student organizations on campus. There's also an event calendar that organizations can add their events to throughout the year. From there, you can go to individual pages of student organizations, find the contact information for the president or director of that organization, and reach out to them directly. So if you want to just jump headfirst, dive right into the deep end, and try and figure out how to join some of these groups, you can do it easily through the system, through the Involvement Network. If you're thinking to yourself, now, I don't know about this, I want to work my way into it. We've got a group of students in our office called the Involvement Ambassadors. It's a group of student leaders from across campus who are heavily involved in other organizations. And you can actually request a one-on-one session with an Involvement Ambassador. They'll now be done via Zoom, just like we're chatting today. And you'll be able to fill out essentially an interest form of things that maybe include your hobbies, areas of interest, things you enjoy doing. And from there, you can talk one-on-one with one of our Involvement Ambassadors, and they can help point out or recommend some opportunities and options to you. Oftentimes what we found is that when we match Involvement Ambassadors and people who are looking to meet with an Involvement Ambassador, is that Involvement Ambassador likely may know someone in an organization you might actually be interested in joining. And so it kind of creates a human connection and an easier way to meet someone new through someone else. Those one-on-one sessions can last anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, and they're proven to be really helpful for students who are kind of unsure about doing it on their own, and they would like just a little bit of additional assistance. This fall, we'll actually also, we're trying to still work out the kinks of it because we can't host it in person this year, but the Involvement Fair is probably the third way I'd recommend for folks to just kind of get an idea of what's out there. It'll be hosted on September 3rd. That's a Thursday. It'll be hosted through the Involvement Network. So if you haven't already, I'd go ahead and go check that site out and create your profile like I mentioned. We'll likely be doing some type of virtual Involvement Fair this year. And then throughout the entire fall semester, we'll be hosting many Involvement Fairs that are typically topic specific. So we might do one on arts and music, and we might do one on pre-professional organizations or honor societies, sports and recreation. The list and topics go on and on, but those are three, I think, ways I'd recommend for someone who's trying to figure out where to start, those are 3 different ways to kind of go about it.
Thank you so much. So what would you say the best way is for students to stay informed and updated with all the events and fairs that you were just talking about?
Absolutely, Ella, it is a lot and can be somewhat overwhelming at times. Two different ways I think could be most helpful to students. One is to join the Student Involvement Listserv. You can find that and join it through our website, again, els.uga.edu. And sign up for the Student Involvement Listserv. That goes out every Monday, and it lists all the updates from our office and events that we're hosting or our organizations are hosting. And we also allow other student organizations to submit information, events, deadlines, maybe applications for positions in their organizations. So that's a really great way to get a ton of information directly to your inbox. The second way that I would encourage folks to kind of keep in tune with all the events going on is to visit welcome.uga.edu. That's the Welcome UGA site. And for the first 6 weeks of school, that's where all of the events will be posted across campus. So that's not just our office, not just student affairs departments and student organizations, but all the way across campus, from Franklin College of Arts and Sciences to the Mary Frances Early College of Education. All the events that are hosted across campus will be listed on that calendar. So again, that's just the Welcome UGA page, and that's welcome.uga.edu.
Awesome. How can student organizations adapt during the pandemic to make safer and more contentious choices or conscientious choices?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really smart. Like we mentioned, the forefront of our planning process always starts with how can we keep folks as safe as possible. We want folks to stay well, to be safe, and that starts with personal responsibility. Folks have got to keep in mind doing the right thing. That's not only going to make sure that you can stay safe and healthy, but also that you're not causing more harm than good, right? There is nothing more that I think all of us want than to have person-to-person, in-person opportunities to engage with each other, to be in community with each other, to fellowship together. But unfortunately, that's just going to happen oftentimes virtually this year. Now, that doesn't mean that the experience has to be less than. I've already seen some really creative ideas come out of organizations across campus who are trying to find ways to engage potential new members, folks interested in joining their organization or attending their events. I would encourage folks to follow the guidelines that have been provided by the university, and simple things that oftentimes are just common sense. Wear a mask, stay 6 feet away from other folks, making good choices for yourself is I think where it starts. And then when it comes to your organization, I think you've got to keep in mind what's going to be the best choice or path forward that's going to try our best to ensure the safety of everyone. Because the sooner we can get over this hump and pass this virus and get to the other side of this, we've created hopefully a new normal where things can maybe resume in person. Our office, the Engagement, Leadership, and Service Department, specifically for student organizations, has released guidelines that are based on the COVID-19 compliance and guidelines from the University System of Georgia, as well as the Department of Public Health and CDC. I would encourage student organizations to check those out. And for folks who are looking into attending events or to participating in things hosted by orgs, I would certainly exude, personal responsibility that is responsible and is conscientious of not only your health and safety, but that of others.
Thank you so much. So how will the ELS space inside of the Tate Student Center operate this fall for student organizations? And what are some of the resources that are going to be offered inside the office for students, such as the involvement ambassadors that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of students love to come and sit in our space and hang out. And oftentimes they're working on student organization projects and upcoming events and initiatives. Unfortunately, our space will look a little different this year than what folks are used to. We're in the process right now of kind of spreading out furniture to accommodate for 6 feet physical distancing guidelines, so that folks, when they are in the space, can kind of feel like they've got a little bit of a buffer between them and others. Unfortunately, that'll also mean that a lot of the big table spaces up front in the Engagement, Leadership, and Service Department, those will probably have 1 chair at each end of very large tables rather than having 8 chairs around these big conference tables. So we're going to do our best to still provide space for students to come and do work and to meet in ways that are going to be physically distanced. That doesn't mean it's probably going to accommodate as many people as it has in the past. So that's something we're already attuned to. We will certainly have hand sanitizing stations around the space, as well as cleaning supplies to clean the space before and after use. We'll still have the cubicles available. Chairs will be spread out more than they have been in the past. So we're trying to make sure that we're still providing those opportunities for in-person and opportunities for a lot of times individual workspaces. So it'll look a little different, but I think we'll still be able to do the best that we can to meet the individual needs of student groups. When it comes to the involvement ambassadors, many of their meetings in the past have happened in our space one-on-one with students who are looking to have involvement coaching meetings. Again, those involvement coaching meetings will now happen via Zoom, and then the organizations that we directly advise will still have their office spaces, but we'll have a little bit stricter guidelines in terms of use of that space, as well as how many folks can be in the office at one time. One additional thing to point out that I think is going to be really important for folks that have frequented our office in the past, we've changed our hours for this fall. This is temporary until we can kind of figure out what things are going to continue to look like through the rest of the semester. But tentatively right now, our office will reopen on August 13th when the Tate Student Center reopens, and we will be open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. Normally we've been open usually later hours into the evening, but the Tate Student Center is going to be closing at 9 o'clock this fall, and so we're trying to accommodate that. We're going to see how it goes. If we realize or think there's ways that we can extend those hours, we're going to do our best to accommodate the need, but we're going to do Monday through Friday 8 to 5 for now and continue to reassess the situation throughout the semester.
Great. Many first years are worried about not getting plugged in and connected this fall. So what advice would you give an incoming student during this time?
Absolutely. Use your network. Use your folks that you are meeting. I mean, a lot of our first year students obviously live on campus. I would definitely recommend that you check out what your RA would recommend or how they're plugged in or connected. Chatting with that person and others in your building is probably a great resource. Chat with other folks that you may know from your high school that have gotten to UGA before you, or folks maybe that you're here with from your previous high school. Sometimes it's more comforting to do things when you're surrounded by folks that you may know. And like I mentioned earlier, though, I think it's still really important just to try new stuff. If there's things that you've been interested in the past, but you're like, oh, I don't have time for that, or, I don't know if I'm really all that interested. What's it hurt to attend one virtual meeting or to reach out to someone who's already in that organization to hear more about it? I think it's worth at least trying something new and seeing how you feel about it. But I would use your resources in your network, folks that you meet in classes. Introduce yourself and ask folks, well, hey, what are you involved in on campus? What are some of the things you do in your free time? I think it not only helps you certainly build a community and meet new people, also find ways to get engaged and plugged in on campus. And often, I think you'll also figure out ways to also learn more about the Athens community and the surrounding area that you're now a member of, to try and kind of figure out where you can contribute positively during your time here at UGA. But I think that starts with using the connections and resources that have been right at your disposal and at your fingertips, and just ask questions. Be willing to ask folks for their thoughts and what they've been involved in, what they've enjoyed in their time so far, and lean heavy on those opportunities to connect and engage with others.
Thank you so much. I definitely agree with all of the great advice that you just gave. And I would love to hear what you are most looking forward to this fall.
Ella, I think it's really easy for folks to feel discouraged or down because this semester may not look the way that it has in the past. But what I am most excited about is the opportunity to try new things. In the past, our department may not have tried new things because it's like, oh, well, we already do it pretty well and things are going good. Well, COVID-19 in a way has kind of forced us to be more creative and innovative in our work. And I'm excited to try new things and to hear from students what it is that they need to be successful. I think this virus and what we're going through right now with this pandemic has allowed us the opportunity to be more adaptable and flexible to the work that we do, and to quickly pivot and try something new. So I'm super excited about this fall. I think folks are going to be pleasantly surprised at how much they're still able to do and engage with. There's nothing better, I think, than being at the University of Georgia and spending your time here and positively contributing not only to your experience, but to that of others. And there's no better way to do that than through involvement in student organizations and service opportunities and leadership and networking chances. So I'm excited for this fall. There's gonna be plenty to do and lots to stay busy with. And as always, I just think that the more you kind of put into it, oftentimes the more you get out of it.
You've spoken so much about the great events that ELS has planned for this next semester. So from your own personal perspective, what would you say is your favorite event that ELS is going to host this year? Like, what are you most excited for?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one because there's tons of stuff. I think right now, and I can't give away any surprises or secrets, but the University Union Student Programming Board has got a pretty impressive slate of some pretty famous people over the course of this fall semester. There might be a musical artist in there somewhere. I know there's a couple of comedians, some YouTube stars, some different social advocacy and issues that we'll chat about and have folks come and speak on. All of that's going to be done via Zoom. And so you don't even have to leave your room. You can lay across your bed or your futon, pull open your phone and be able to see famous people who are just talking to UGA students and doing Q&As with folks that are tuned into the session. I'm pretty pumped to see how this goes. There's a really impressive lineup so far, and fingers crossed we'll start to get into announcing some of those soon.
Taylor, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We invite all parents and students to visit els.uga.edu to learn more about engagement, leadership, and service at UGA.
All right. Okay. Our third guest for today is from the Greek Life office, Mr. Joshua Welch. Will you please introduce yourself as well as what is housed and run by the Greek Life office?
Sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Josh Welch. I serve as the director of the Greek Life office here at UGA. And a little bit about our office. We are charged with the oversight, advocacy, advisement, and engagement of the 65 fraternities and sororities on UGA's campus social organizations. Those organizations are divided into 4 different councils: the Interfraternity Council, Multicultural Greek Council, the National Panhellenic Council, or NPHC, and then Panhellenic Council. We also have the fortunate opportunity to work with UGA Miracle, which is our Greek community's philanthropy, working very closely with that organization to raise money for the Children's Hospital in Atlanta. And then also we oversee the UGA Student Food Pantry. So that's a Panhellenic initiative celebrating its 10th year here in 2020. And so we work with the coordination of donations that go into the food pantry and then the distribution of those items in collaboration with Student Care and Outreach to see those food pieces go into the students who have food insecurities or might need to utilize that resource intermittently. My role in the office is really just to kind of oversee the strategic oversight of the department or of the office, really working closely with our assistant directors as they oversee their councils, but also to make sure from the 30,000-foot view that our community is coming together and engaging with different resources available on campus to have the best fraternity and sorority experience that we can here at UGA.
Thank you so much. So now we are going to jump into our questions that students and parents have submitted.
So right off the bat here, how will recruitment events look different for this fall?
Sure. Lots of questions coming in about recruitment. A lot of people are excited about it. Certainly, as we can all expect, recruitment will look a lot different than it has in previous years. So we've been working very closely with our councils since about April to talk about what recruitment might need to look like. We have different contingency committees that have been put in place. But essentially what our plan right now is to ensure that there are social distancing and gathering restrictions, that we're following those. We're working with campus partners such as Ramsey Center for the Interfraternity Council, their event taking place there, allowing the space to spread out, ensuring those social distancing guidelines are put into place. We will be, as the rest of campus, making sure that folks are wearing masks, that we're distributing hand sanitizer, those opportunities for people to practice that self-care, those personal prevention practices. It is a little bit more scaled down than it has been in the past, but it is also a more formalized process. So we're ensuring that only a certain number of people are gathering in certain places, being consistent with those executive orders that are in place. And that's what the fraternity side will look like. On the sorority side, we have about 1,800 PNMs, or potential new members, that are registered for the process. This is a record year of registrations, and so that has led us to have to think a little bit differently. Not only in the world of COVID have we had to think differently, but now thinking about how might we facilitate a recruitment process with 1,800 potential new members involved, plus the 5,000 already affiliated sorority members that we have in our community. And so we're going to be utilizing a virtual process for the first parts of our rounds, or first part of our recruitment process, which essentially is going to allow folks to engage in virtual platforms, some interview type conversations, some small group conversations, and ensure, again, obviously, that social distancing piece through the virtual world. So that process really taking place the front end, where recruitment, there's a lot of people in a traditional format, a lot of people meeting, a lot of people engaging in that physical space together. But we've really limited or eliminated that on the front end of recruitment, to where when we get to the later parts of recruitment, where it's smaller groups of people going into chapter houses or into classroom spaces here on campus. And so the opportunity for us, again, to limit the number of people that are gathered together, ensure those social distancing practices are in place, and then also allowing still an opportunity for students to engage and connect, because that's important. We know that students want to engage and connect with their peers and feel like they're connected to UGA, but ensuring that we're doing that in a safe way. So that's a little bit about what recruitment's going to look like. I can tell you that the wind blows and things have to adjust here and there, but we do feel pretty confident with our plan currently that we're ensuring those CDC guidelines, along with the executive orders, are being complied with, as well as the guidance that we're receiving from USG.
Thank you so much. So how are the sororities and fraternities going to be held accountable for the CDC guidelines and kind of those practices that you just mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working with council and chapter leadership, as we always have and always will. That idea of engaging students, pulling them into the conversation. So we're working with them, their chapter advisors and house corporations, really to make sure that everyone's on board, everyone understands what's expected of them and what we're really trying to do to help them meet those expectations. And so working with our chapter advisors and house corporations to ensure that they know what the university is expecting of these organizations, and then trying to help them meet those expectations. The Greek Life Office staff, we're also providing resources to chapters and for guidance on what does it look like if you need to host an event in person, such as meal operation, if there's a small committee meeting, something to that effect, even to the point of a social event, how might you do that and meet the obligations of those guidelines. And so giving them not only the expectation, but hopefully some resources that they would utilize to meet that expectation. To your question, there is and likely will be an opportunity where people aren't really meeting our expectations, and we'll work with existing processes and relationships to hold those groups accountable. That's, again, pulling in chapter advisors, pulling in house corporations, and then having some conversations with those student leaders about what that necessarily needs to look like, how they need to do differently. And if we have to, figuring out what that additional layer of accountability might look like.
Great. So speaking on the CDC guidelines and how Greek Life is going to adapt to those, how have other events and programs involving Greek Life, not necessarily recruitment, been adapted to follow these expectations?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have some signature programs that typically have relied on folks coming together, much like other campus programs, that physical in-person space, the direct conversations across the table or in a classroom together. We've adjusted a lot of those, so our large programs will be using virtual formats, breakout sessions via Zoom, We're still going to be collaborating with our campus partners to put them in front of our students to engage in those developmental conversations and programming. But we'll certainly be working with the Career Center and other folks to make sure that they still have access to our students. There's still that opportunity to engage in those educational programs, but likely based off of the size and scale of our events, they'll be in a virtual format.
Thank you so much. So what efforts does the Greek Life Office plan to implement with respect to equity, diversity, and inclusion?
That's a great question. We have had a lot of conversations about that this summer. As you know, there's been a lot of conversations from the Pledge Against Racism group and others, here asking what Greek Life needs to do differently, how we need to adjust. And so we have worked with our student leaders, so the council leadership of the 4 councils I mentioned earlier, as well as the executive director of UGA Miracle, put out a statement of what they would like to see the Greek community really do and strive towards. A part of that statement was the development of a committee on diversity, equity, inclusion that has been formed. They've called together, there's 17 members of the Greek community, along with some faculty and staff members throughout the university, as well as some national organization partners that are coming to the table for this conversation. And so we're really working to make sure that, one, we explore what do we need to do differently, where have we misstepped, what are things that we need, mistakes that we've made, how do we right those wrongs, and then how do we propel ourselves into the future of looking ahead of what does a vision of diversity, equity, inclusion look like for fraternities and sororities here at UGA. Ultimately, our goal is to have a community that is celebratory of all of its members and create space and place for members to come and really engage in what we think to be powerful experiences within fraternities and sororities. Each respective council that I've talked about is also going to be doing a deep dive into the nuances of their council. And so understanding what does that need to look like for Panhellenic. Our Panhellenic Council has talked a lot about how does diversity, equity, inclusion come into the role of recruitment, and specifically in the world of recruitment in a virtual format. And so they've just spent the past week and a half with a facilitator talking about implicit bias training for the recruitment counselors, and then also for our recruitment teams, those folks that are making those membership selection decisions, really spending time with them talking about implicit bias. And then also, what does authentic recruitment look like? How does someone come into a recruitment space and truly represent themselves and the authenticity that they bring into that organization, what they would offer that organization? And how do we look at that as something that propels our organization, strengthens it? So they've spent a lot of time really going through some training conversations, and also understanding how do they disrupt and interrupt those places where bias might come into the conversation. So I'm really excited about where we're headed. I think a lot of it is not just educational program, but I think some of it's going to really focus on that skill development of how do you speak out against that, and how do you make sure that that's something that you're keeping out of your organization, and making sure that is what you truly want to see the organization be and become. So certainly a lot of work ahead of us, but I'm excited about the groundwork that we've done so far, and the committee coming together, I think, is going to be something that really drives us into the future.
Thank you.
So where can students stay updated with new information and resources within Greek Life as the situation kind of changes?
The situation specific to diversity, equity, inclusion, or to
just the general workings of Greek Life amid our kind of new normal?
Sure. So obviously, I would say our website, we try to keep that as up to date as possible. Each of our councils has a website that they also are able to put information out. The Greek Life community calendar is certainly something that I would encourage folks to look into. And then also our social media platforms, Instagram handles, understanding that what we can push out through social media is oftentimes reflected on our website, but maybe shows up in a little bit different way, maybe a little bit more immediate access to it. But those would be the places I would direct you first to understand a little bit more about what we've got going on and what's ahead for us.
Thank you so much. So what advice would you give to incoming students during this time?
So this is a great question. I was thinking a lot about this because I think that Ultimately, we know it's going to be different. We know it's going to look different and potentially feel different. But I would just encourage students coming in just to lean into the experience, lean into what's being offered to you. There are phenomenal experiences offered here at UGA, and just make the most of what you can. It will look different, it will feel different, but know that there are folks here that are also experiencing that. But we're excited that you're here, and we want to make sure you have a positive experience. So for folks who come into the Greek community, I certainly want you to figure out, what organization works well, matches who you want to be, and what experience you want to have at UGA. But then also, I believe strongly that when done right and well, the fraternity and sorority experience is not a bubble. So I want you to figure out, how do you connect with our organizations, and then get out and experience everything else that UGA truly has to offer you.
Great. Next one here. How can graduate students get involved in the 4 councils that are comprised in the Greek Life Office?
Sure. So most of our organizations have very specific processes for how they might take a graduate member. There are very few organizations that offer an experience purely for graduate students. But any graduate student that might be coming to UGA that is already affiliated or has an interest in being a part of or working with fraternities and sororities, certainly welcome them to join, come into the office, ask how they might get involved, connect with any of our staff members. Our students who are, the graduate students who are affiliated, want to figure out, how do we connect you with, if your respective affiliation is here at UGA, how might we connect you with those people so that you're able to understand that continuity of membership, and it is a lifelong experience. For graduate students who aren't affiliated, coming in, and like I said, there's plenty of opportunities to get involved, understanding that UGA Miracle is not closed to the Greek community. We want that to be something that's open to all of campus. And so there's a number of opportunities to get involved and be very active in that as well.
Thank you. And so many students are asking if they should get involved in Greek life during the spring instead of the fall. So how does spring recruitment typically work, and how might that look different in spring 2021?
Sure. So for our Panhellenic community and for IFC, they practice a primary recruitment period in the fall, and that's typically when they're bringing in their new members. In the spring semester, most of our MGC and NPHC organizations might be doing recruitment or intake for their respective organizations, so there are membership experiences available in the spring semester. I always encourage students to go through, if they're interested in an IFC or Panhellenic experience, to go through the primary recruitment period and just explore all of the options that are available to you. You might decide to wait to join until the spring semester, but you'll at least understand that all of the options that you have within that respective council, you'll see during that primary recruitment period. But to your question about should they wait or what does that look like, in the spring semester, we will have likely some chapters that, if the Panhellenic experience is what you're referring to or wanting to explore, there will be some chapters that will have opportunities to take members on in the spring semester. Our fraternities for IFC will also be doing some small chapter-based recruitment in the spring semester. So really the only difference is that for IFC and Panhellenic, the council is really driving what recruitment looks like in the fall, and every chapter is open. We're wanting to make sure everyone understands every option that's available to them. In the spring, those two councils really go to more of a chapter-driven conversation, chapter-driven recruitment process. And then MGC and NPHC, like I said, they'll be doing their intake and recruitment processes in the spring as well.
Thank you.
Great. So how would you advise students looking at the different fraternities and sororities on campus, and where would you direct them to kind of put in some research prior to coming to campus and possibly looking to join one of these organizations?
Sure. Jack, I'm sorry, if you could repeat the first part of your question.
Oh, sure. How would you advise students looking at the different fraternities and sororities on campus, and where would you direct them to kind of do some campus if they're looking to join one of these organizations?
Sure. So one thing that I always encourage students to look at is to really spend some time thinking about what are your goals? What are you wanting to do when you get to UGA, and how might this organization complement who you already are? These organizations are not meant to totally rebrand or rewire you. You have been raised to be a certain type of person, and these organizations really should help to complement that person that you already are. And so spending some time really thinking about what are your values, what are your goals, what are things that you want to see accomplished within your life while you're here on campus, and then beyond your time here at UGA, what are you wanting that to look like? And I think that just that moment of self-reflection can really help individuals develop some really great questions for when you go through recruitment. You can start asking some pointed questions to folks to say, like, how is this truly going to help me be who I want to be, or who I already am? How is this going to complement that? I think that it's important, one of the things I will always say, if you're interested in academic success and endeavors are important to you, check out our grade report. Check out the things that are available to you online. You can see how our organizations have been trending with their academic success and endeavors, and you can know, like, okay, this is an organization that, based off of this number of years, they truly have put grades in a place of priority within their organization, and that might be something that is attractive to you. So I think my advice to folks as they go through any type of recruitment or aspirational membership process is to really think about, what are you wanting to get from the organization, and then how do you develop questions that truly represent who you are, that help you understand and kind of get down to, really, this is an organization that's going to fit me, or this is an organization that is not going to fit me. And I think that decision-making process is so important. And when you see folks who spend the time and intentionality with that, they have a great membership experience because they've made a really informed decision based off of what was available to them.
Thank you. And so I know you mentioned the 4 different councils. Can you expand on that a little bit and touch on the focuses of each of the different councils? Sure.
So our Interfraternity Council is comprised of 26 membership organizations, all fraternities. So they are primarily social organizations within the IFC. MGC, or the Multicultural Greek Council, are our culturally based organizations. They are, that council is comprised of both fraternities and sororities, and they are all working towards their pieces. How do they advance with diversity? How do we come together in that world of diversity and really advance the mission of our organizations, sometimes working specifically with populations that reflect their membership. And then our NPHC, our National Pan-Hellenic Council, those organizations, there are 9 of them throughout the country, also sometimes referred to as the Divine 9 or D9. We are fortunate to host 7 of those 9 organizations here at UGA. There's 2 chapters that aren't currently here, but may join us in the future or rejoin us in the future. Those are our historically Black organizations, and they are working specifically with individuals who are interested in the culture of those organizations and the advancement of their efforts around those specific communities. And then our Pan-Hellenic Council is comprised of 19 sororities, all members of the National Pan-Hellenic Conference. There are 26 of those organizations throughout the country, and we host 19 of them here at UGA. And again, very similar to IFC, social in nature, but each of them has their own kind of focus of what they're looking at as far as philanthropy, community service, values.
Great. So what are you looking forward most to in the fall?
Well, to be honest with you, for the fall semester, I'm just looking forward to students being back on campus. And even though it is going to look a little bit different, just knowing that we've got energy coming to campus and students who want to engage in the community that is UGA. I'm certainly looking forward to an opportunity to spend more time with students to understand, how does fraternity and sorority fit into who they are and what they want to be, and how do we move this community forward. So while I do enjoy Zoom platforms and this time that we get to spend with one another, I certainly am looking forward to an opportunity to maybe sit socially distanced in the Greek Life office to have a conversation with the student and just kind of see that life here on campus.
Mr. Welch, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We invite all parents and students to visit greeklife.uga.edu to learn more about UGA Greek Life.
Thank you.
I would like to thank all of our guests who attended and spoke about how the university will be adapting this fall. Sounds like there's a lot of great plans in the works. If you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to visit the sites that were present on screen and that Ella mentioned. You could DM us on social media or email your senator, which can be found on the SGA website.